Minimum wage, 70,000 naira. That is a position right now. A meeting with between the federal government and organized labor. We're being joined by the NLC president, who was part of that meeting, Mr. Joe Ajero. Mr. Ajero, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Ajero, I remember it was me and you and I having a conversation one afternoon that you helped us to break down why labor was starting from 650,000 naira. You broke it down brilliantly. And everybody kind of agreed that this makes sense, even though it looked like a tall order. How did you move from 650 to 250 to 70,000 today?
Well, a great work. You know, a lot of input entered into it. In the first instance, the government team stepped from what they called living wage to minimum wage. And when they moved into the issue of minimum wage, it has been a running battle between all tiers of government that were supposed to equally participate in the process. While we were even negotiating, comments and fights from the states who say they can't even pay 60 was there. Comments from states that are still paying 18,000 has been there. Now, the issue of revenue in the last minute, of this discussion with the president equally came up, and accepting 70,000 was the best way to make sure that we save Nigerians from further hardship. At the last week meeting, the president brought a proposal. I will give you guys 250 if you allow me to equally increase the pump price of petroleum products. And we said, no, we need to go and consult. Today, we went there to tell him, no, the labor movement can make sacrifices without allowing Nigerians to suffer further on the increase on pump price of petroleum products. We equally looked at it that within 5 years, instead of dragging for 5 years, we are still going to have another negotiation before the end of the present administration, thereby negotiating 2 times within 5 years. And by that time, we need to equally move higher based on the situation of the moment. Now, there are equally other incentives, although those ones are promissory notes, but we need to follow them up that made us to anchor this on something. Now, in the history of negotiation, either here or elsewhere, for you to push beyond even 130% or more, has a lot to say. There are people, other stakeholders, the organized private sector, the SMEs, that are under pressure for us. The ease of doing business is another thing. The energy costs, all my foreign exchange, all manner of costs. Those businesses, we took them into consideration while waiting that we are going to review this, shorter than it ought to have been. So all these things came into consideration, and we needed to anchor this. We needed to raise this while going back. Those are the issues that came up today. And then if all the things we agreed for, are implemented, and those were the ones I call promissory note, you will discover that the 70,000 may have value. It's not usually the quantum. There was a time minimum wage was 125 naira, and it made sense. But if we are going to talk also other indices, if they are touching some other indices, it will make 70,000 a lot, give it a lot of meaning. So that is where we are, and that's why we've got where we are today, and we have to raise this thing on something.
So when is NEC meeting to ratify this so that payments, because I know government is in arrears, they had promised that whatever is agreed upon, whenever, payment starts in May?
Well, the issue, the minimum wage, last minimum wage expired by 18th April. So the arrears will cover from 18th April to the current date. So I think that's when arrears will be paid. And then they need to do the necessary things by taking it to the National Assembly for it to be enacted into law. And then we'll move on from there. That's where we are.
So some people were thinking that, okay, well, Labour is overreaching for 250. Government is just being miserly with 60,000. Now government has increased to 70,000. So what is the plan for closing that particular gap, which in your words, you said these are promissory notes. So if at the end of the day, because it looks like you're saying, President said 250,000, I can pay you that, not a problem, but I will increase pump price. And you said no. Okay, you now agree to 70,000 because there are other ancillary, not necessarily ancillary, other things that can be put in place to make 70,000 worthwhile. So when do you expect to see those things that will make 70,000 naira worthwhile for a least paid worker before maybe you start agitating yet again?
Well, my brother, we're all alive. Well, in fact, if you watch the issue of the concept of the least paid worker today, is that worker on level 1, step 1. We are going into further discussion on what is called consequential adjustment. In every ministry and parastatal today, the least worker, maybe the one with school start on level 4, step something. Now, by the time we go into a meticulous consequential adjustment, and by the time you finish all the salary grades on level 1, step 1 to level 2, step 1 to last grade, level 3 to, and get there, you will see that the least paid worker, in the real sense of it, is not getting 70,000 naira. So these are not the technical details I would like to come up with here. There's hardly anybody in any public service that is any level on level 1, step 1, which is where the 70,000 is. By the time you get there, ordinarily, if we handle the framework for the consequential adjustment, will actually situate where the least paid worker is standing.
So how do you think this is going to impact the economy at the end of the day? Inflation headline is about 33%, 40% for food inflation. And we usually have experienced the fact that whenever there's an increase in minimum wage of public workers, so does inflation go up. Are you concerned? Are you worried?
That inflation may have reached its elastic limit, because without an increase in minimum wage, the inflation is growing. What you are trying to do is to make sure that even with the level of inflation over the years, at least this person can still go to work, still get some work to do. That analysis that it is wage increase that creates a lot of inflation, doesn't hold much water. However, for where we are now, because people were saying, if you pay more than this, there will be inflation. From where we are now, there ought to be balance. But we have made it clear, that, look, the issue of CNG is a no-no. And that was why he was offering that they are coming in with how many CNG, they have brought so many. Now, if you have a CNG and you solve the problem of accommodation, of transportation, a lot will come down. Foodstuff, moving them from one place to the other will come down. Now, we have equally talked about price of food, and then all the incentives needed for it. If you address this, assuming you crash the price of bag of rice to 40 or 30,000, and is in the market, you crash that of transportation, drastically, and then you get probably some of the refineries working. 70,000 will be enough for a worker.
There's also the question that I've forgotten the commission that talked about it. I think it's in the works, which is why I'm asking you whether, when it comes to public servants or civil servants, we should start rethinking the model from just longevity guaranteeing a growth in career path to the issue of productivity. Is that something Labour is having as a conversation within themselves, talking more about productivity beyond anything else that can guarantee, promotions in terms of the civil service?
Well, I wouldn't know from the premise he's drawing it. But in every ministry, in every parastatal, in every agency, even the private sector, the issue of job evaluation and job analysis are attached to every office, every post, every rank. and now it's reviewed from time to time. If you watch at the end of the year, there's appraisal, for every work, and every worker and their performance. That is how to measure productivity, especially in the public service and private sector. Now, unless they have reduced their standard, ordinarily it is there, it's inbuilt. So for the person saying that, unless he's suspecting something, that the indices or the parameter for the measurement of productivity has changed, and then we are willing. The National Productivity Center and the other agencies of government are there who can restructure it and see where it goes.
Some are even talking about, maybe talking about like we do in the West, like they do in the West rather, the issue of paying wages per hour. Is that something that we should contemplate someday within the worker space in Nigeria? Before I just ask my last question, we're totally out of time.
Sometimes it may be fashionable. We've tried to push it here. You can't even situate it here in terms of naira. Maybe sometime as we negotiate moving forward, it may be reasonable. It will favor us. It will give us more impetus for workers in Nigeria. It's where to go, but you can see that it has been war all this while, negotiating even the little we've got.
Thank you so much. But before I let you go, Mr. Ajero, so the labor organs are going to meet, or the different sectors are going to meet, and so when are we getting a final word from the organized labor?
Well, even by 10/11 tomorrow, the NLC National Executive Council will meet, and this is taking into consideration that all states are involved. And the fact that when we agree on a minimum wage, it applies for them. And we're going to look at the template, look at the states that can start immediately, the ones that need some push for them to start. Look at the state of it now, and then we'll have a final nod.
All right.
So that's the situation.
All right, the reason I asked that question, at the end of the day, there are people that are still struggling to pay 30,000 and now 70,000 naira. So is there anything Labour is going to do to that effect?
Well, there's even no time. Even when it was 30,000, people were still saying they can't pay. When it was 7,500, many states say they can't pay. It was 18,000.
All right.
They still say they can't pay.
All right.
So that's where we are now. It takes process of enforcement and implementation.
All right, Mr. Joe Ajero, NLC President, thank you so much for stopping by to give us an update of that meeting between you and the President. Thank you.